How's it, guys? Welcome back to Rex to Rides, where we are still turning your hard-earned cash into unfinished projects and broken dreams. So yeah, the biggest challenge to your DIY spray painter is compressors, and the problem is with compressors is that they're so bloody expensive nowadays. And if you get one that's a little bit cheaper, you're gonna find out soon enough why it's a little bit cheaper. And normally there's something wrong with it, and that something wrong with it can easily turn out to be a very expensive something wrong with it. But it's not to say that just because there's a lot of cars in the shade so you can see. Um, it's not to say that a lot of guys are going to say you have to have at least 15 CFM and you have to have this and you have to have that. And they are not wrong. You have to have certain specifications to spray professionally or on a professional basis or in a booth, and this is what is required for that. So if you don't have the budget to meet those requirements, there is nothing that says you cannot spray a car or anything. There's no law against it. You can still spray. Nobody can tell you can't spray. You've just got to get a little bit creative. So the reason why I'm showing you this car is because this car, in its entirety to this point, has been sprayed with a little 50-liter compressor. Now, granted, it was a compressor that it had a relatively high output. It was about 8 or 9 CFM, but a very old one. It's 40 years old. And that started throwing some fish eyes and all sorts. Turns out the oil was coming up through the rings because they were a bit worn, and so that's in for repairs. And that kind of left me in a bit of a pickle because I was left with one compressor, and yes, it's a little 50-liter compressor, and that's this one. And a lot of guys you're going to have this in your garage. This is what you've got, this little 50-liter, and it has a very low output. It's a little DIY one. I think its output is like 6 or 7 CFM. So this is what you're going to get in your garage, and you're going to try and spray. Now, I try to spray with that compressor, and here on this hood, with its low output, and I find that okay, this is a bit dusty. When I get halfway through on a float coat, I'm running out of air. So, you know, now we have to start thinking a little bit, because we don't all have the budget for a massive compressor, just for little DIY projects. One of the next items I want to spray is my bike. I want to do something a bit out there. That's it in the back there. And so it's not a lot of stuff. And this little 50-liter compressor will do it. We have since bought that one. And again, you buy something on a budget, you're going to get something with a problem. And the problem with this one is there's a slight earth leakage in the motor. And I've actually determined that it's the wires going down to the armature. So I'm actually just going to get an electrician to repair that. Otherwise, it is fantastic. But I've only got that because the whole pack's in for repairs. I only had this one, and I couldn't get through that bonnet, so I was in a bit of a pickle. So yes, again, you buy something on a budget, there's a reason why it's cheaper. And we just can't all afford these things. You're on the Facebook groups. These guys are talking all sorts of stuff. They're showing a lot of things that you want to do, and you just can't do it because you don't have the money. So this is where we get a little bit creative here. So what I've done, because I sprayed that, no dryers, nothing, and a lot of fish eyes, a lot of problems. So I developed the paint stand 2.0. In fact, this is a paint stand 2.12, I think, now. And what I first did was I had a series of copper pipes coming up, across, down, across, each with a valve on the bottom, all nicely soldered together, and my fisheyes just got worse. And as it turned out, that this contains so many contaminants, and you can't really clean something like that out with benzene. So I stripped the whole thing down and took that compressor in for repairs and thought, well, let's give this a rethink. So this is what I've got here. First off, we've got a stand you can easily knock together with a bit of a welder and a bit of square tube. So we just started off with a stand. And then I looked at some other setups. One of them happened to be a friend of mine. He's actually owns a paint shop, and he said, no, yeah, use my compressor, but his has got a bit of a problem. Also keeps tripping. So I took one look at his setup, and this is something that he's described to me a few times, and it's just a T-piece with a valve on the bottom. So what's happening here? You know, every time, just go over this, what I do. Every time when before I do anything, because we have a lot of problems with humidity here. It's summer, it's hot, it's humid. I run the compressor full, and then I open up that drain pipe. Even though I store it with that valve open, you can see this is just what's collected overnight. So I let it drain out, and then I let it recharge, and it's ready to go. So I know already there I don't have water. There's no water there. It'll come through. It will obviously build up because you're pumping, you're compressing, because it's a compressor. A lot of humid air, it will build up. So I've done the similar thing to what he's done there, but I've had to do it on a stand. The reason why, I don't have a spray booth, just like you. Mr. DIY, Miss DIY, Mrs. DIY, we are all DIYers, and I'm just working under here. And I have limited space, and I have limited resources. So just like you know, once you've started getting your guns, and you upgrading your guns, you're buying your paint, you're getting new hoses, you're getting this, you're getting that, there's very little budget left over. So we must get creative and make a plan, as they say in South Africa here, 'n boer maak 'n plan. So let's go over the main bit of what's going on here. Our air comes in here. Don't worry about this for now. And then it hits a T-piece here. The T-piece goes down, and at the bottom is a valve. Again, I store this with the valve open. So this is continually draining. Then our air goes up, and what happens here is that your air hits the end, and it starts causing turbulence. So you want a fair amount of distance below it and above it. And that turbulence throws the water out, and it collects along the side of the copper and runs down and drains. This is the basics of it. Then it comes in, but sometimes that's just not really even. That's not enough. I've had humidity collecting in the hose here. So we're moving through a regulator, which we'll get onto later. And then I have an air dryer here. So any air going out to a gun or anything is going to go through this initial dryer here. And you can see it does work. It is still removing water. And how these work is they've got little holes up here, and they throw the air out, which is the same thing happening here. Collects along the sides, and then they've got a secondary filter in there and heads on up. At the top here, what I've done, because I need two outlets here. Reason for that is that I've got my main gun, which I connect to the top over here. And then I'm always using a blower or an airbrush. So that's what I've done here, is I've got this little blower. They're dead handy. Very nice little thing. It's got a little keyring that can hook on there. And on the other side, now I've had my old airbrush dropped off a different version of this. So this has been modified a number of times. And you can see this is a bit of galvanized pipe weld on with the nails that have been bent and welded. That's it. It's that simple. Airbrushes, you move this around and they fall off. So I've done something a bit more robust there. And what I do have is a little regulator at the air gun, because that's where I like it. And I like it at an angle like that, so I can hold it and keep an eye on the pressure. Now, this is the thing. When you don't have a massive $1 million compressor, you need to keep an eye on the pressure. That's what you got to do, because if that pressure drops below a threshold, your paint's going to start spitting out little lumps and your whole job is ruined. So we don't want that. Another little funky thing is I just got a little rack here that was in the kitchen, and that was that. So little hooks, because I like to have my cloths around, and then of course some lights, because I'm working under here and I can't really see it floating on, you know, even in the daytime, especially when that Isuzu was underneath here. So this is what the stand is all about. But now back to your conundrum. Your conundrum in the first place. By the way, I've just seen a WhatsApp come through from the guys repairing the whole pack, so I'm good on that. I've got a feeling that's all sorted. I'm connecting this hose. Okay, I got it on the 100, but I'm connecting it to my little 50 litre, and a 50 litre is 1,500 Rand. Divide that by 20, you got dollars. New 2,500 Rand. So that's not the 10,000 required, or 15,000 for a huge compressor. You also don't really have the space. Now, that compressor is taking up almost as much space in the garage as my bike is. So I've got a bit of a space problem also. So what I've done here is I've added on a second valve with a shutoff. And that shutoff valve allows me to connect a second compressor to this. So there's nothing to say that you can't borrow your mate's 50 litre compressor and plug both in. So as far as I'm concerned, that 100 litre, which I pay a lot of money for and is now needing more work done just on sorting out that short, is I pay more than I would have done for two of these. So you can borrow one, or you can just buy a second one. So that's 6 CFM, that's 12 or 13 CFM. That's sufficient for DIY work for me. If I'm going to do an entire car in one go with two guys doing a base coat, clear coat, and all that, that isn't going to cut it. But when I look around here, I don't see entire cars. I don't see a spray booth. I don't see two guys doing that. All I'm seeing is a DIY guy who enjoys painting and enjoys experimenting like you all do. You know, here's some experimentation. We're trying different base coats, clear coats, pearls, ceramics, the whole lot. Even some candy. And that's what we like to do. We just want to spray a bike. We just want to spray this. We just want to spray that. So what I would do then is connect the two 50-litre compressors. And remember, with the compressor, it doesn't like extensions. That extension causes a voltage drop enough to start doing damage to the armature. So you don't want that. So you want to plug it in basically direct into a plug, a wall plug. And you don't want to be running extensions. When they both kick in, like that one pulls a bit of current when it kicks, they could trip the circuit breaker, because what's going to happen, they're both joining in, and so they are both equalizing, and they both set to kick in at a 6 bar, I think it is. What you can do is drop one down here that it kicks in a little bit sooner, but I wouldn't really be buggering around with that. Or what you can do is just make sure they plugged in on different circuit breakers, so they don't pull your circuit breaker too much current. Their startup takes a lot of current, and then they're going to come through here. Now, the idea is, here's the theory. How you get to it outcome based is up to you. The theory is you got to have more air behind coming up to the gun than the gun is using. You got to have more dry, clean air. So if I've got 23 psi here on the gun, which is reading 1.5 bar, it makes sense to have 4 bar coming in. But you're going to get a lot of pressure fluctuations if you just join 2 compressors onto this. They're filling up at different rates, they're working at different rates, and that pressure fluctuation will come out here, and you want a constant, steady supply. So what I've done here is, for that eventuality, is I've added on a regulator over here in line with the whole lot. So I can keep this entire system coming in at 4 bar over here, and I can be pushing out 1.5 at the gun. Now, here's another few small technical details. A lot of guys are going to be saying, yes, but you've got a lot of constrictions here. And it's true. I do have a lot of constrictions here. But remember, I'm a DIY guy. I don't have money for high-flow pipes, high-flow connectors, high-flow everything. I just don't have the money. So the way I've got this set up is that I have at least 50 psi, which is 3 bars at all times coming in at the gun, which is more than enough considering I'm only spraying at 1.5 bar. So there is that. When you're doing this professionally, go buy yourself a massive compressor and get your high flow dryers, get your high flow everything, and drop that 100 grand on the whole lot, and then start with your spray booth and start with this and start with that. Different story. We are not on that level. We are DIY guys, and that's what we're doing. I did that whole thing with a 50 litre with none of this. I got a lot of fish eyes. I had to sand a lot and paint a lot and sand a lot and paint a lot until I just got like completely frustrated and started working on this. So this is a second version. Another small technical detail is that you got a lot of stuff going on here. If your compressor throws a bit of oil or something, or you need to clean that out, you need to get contaminants out of there. If the first one I did, I used the solder joints. So I used the Copcal joints and soldered them. Then I tried to clean them with benzene. I couldn't get it clean. What you need to clean that is hydrochloric acid. So you need to pour it in there. Now, hydrochloric acid does not affect copper, but it affects lead. So you can't use the solder joints, which is why I've had to spend a little bit more and go with these Conex joints. And they're working fine. The nice thing is when I see something's working or not working, I can just take it apart and redo a certain section. I don't need to go cutting pipes and buy new joints or anything. I can just make any adjustments I want to this stand as it is. So that's what's coming out here. I don't like having a big load of that at the airbrush. So I have that little dryer in there. It comes out and goes off to the airbrush with just a regulator, because for what I do use the airbrush for, I like some high pressure. And then the main gun is now running through 1, 2, plus that 3 dryers. It comes out to the gun, and like I said, a lot of humidity. So I've got this. We're using the small Welcome today. Beautiful little gun, 1mm nozzle. And I've got a quick coupler on there so I can rotate. That's the only reason why I've got it. And it's a pain in the arse screwing these things on and off, because remember, you don't have money for 4 or 5 regulators for your 4 or 5 guns. So we've just got that, and then I've got a dryer on here, which you can see has worked, because I'm still getting humidity coming through the line. And there's a few reasons why I've done it like that. A lot of guys will look at this and go, no, that's too bulky, you're going to have problems. Firstly, I can get in low. That helps a hell of a lot. Secondly, I like to wrap the hose around my head. Then what I've got, well, it's very awkward getting the camera in. I've got my filter here, and I'm trying to get into focus. I've got my regulator right there at an angle that I can always keep an eye on the pressure, because remember, we cannot afford massive compressors, so we need to be keeping an eye on the pressure that it doesn't drop below that threshold and damage our paint. And then I've got my gun, so it looks a bit awkward, but it's really quite comfortable. And off we go, spraying. So there we are, little, yeah, I haven't set it down, so it sounds very high. We're doing a few more spray outs. We're going to be playing with some pearls and lettering. So, guys, thank you for watching. I hope this video helps. A lot of guys sitting out there. Look, I haven't had a fisheye problem since I started with this setup. So, if you like this, please like and subscribe. If this video has helped you, drop me a comment. Let me know this video helped you or this video was terrible. Please stop making videos. These are LED lights, which I've just used old neon fittings and bypassed all the crap inside there and popped them in. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching.